here in the courtyard of Eyüp Sultan Mosque. And Eyüp Sultan Mosque sits right outside the old city walls of Constantinople. And this mosque carries major significance for a number of reasons. The first being that it is the burial place of Abu Ayoub Al-Ansari, who is a companion of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And Abu Ayoub Al-Ansari has many stories about him. The earliest that well-known stories was when the Prophet, peace be upon him, arrived to the city of Medina during the pilgrimage or the Hijrah. Many of the Ansar, or the helpers, those were the Muslims of Medina, were known as the helpers because of the aid that they provided the Prophet and his early companions. Many of them had offered their homes for the Prophet to stay until he had built his own home. And so, in an effort to not upset anybody and show favor to any companion, the Prophet allowed his camel to stroll in the streets of Medina, and wherever the Prophet's camel had stopped, that's where he would stay. And so the camel ended up at the home of Abu Ayoub Al-Ansari. And Abu Ayoub Al-Ansari was a wealthier person, and he had a larger home that could accommodate the Prophet, peace be upon him. And so his home had 2 levels in it, 2 floors. And so Abu Ayoub Al-Ansari had offered the upper level to the Prophet so that he has more privacy, and so Abu Ayoub would not feel that he is living above the Prophet physically. But the Prophet insisted that he would stay on the first level because he might also get a lot of visitors, and he didn't want to disrupt what was going on with the family of Abu Ayoub Al-Ansari. So the Prophet stayed on the first floor, and later on it was found out that Abu Ayoub Al-Ansari and his family, in an effort to avoid being literally above the Prophet, had moved all their furniture and were only using the sides of the room. Everything was against the wall, and they would not walk across the middle of the room. And they would sleep against the wall, walk against the wall, sit against the wall. So they didn't feel that they were above the Prophet. So what brings Abu Ayoub Al-Ansari here? Abu Ayoub Al-Ansari was someone who was known to have partaken in every battle possible. So much so that it was said about him that if there was a battle going on with the Muslims, you would find Abu Ayoub Al-Ansari there. And if you didn't, then it's because he was engaging in another battle at the same time. And so in his in his 90s, he had heard that there was an army going to Constantinople, that the Khalifa was taking some army out there. And he had obviously known about the positive prophecies that the Prophet ﷺ had made about Constantinople at the time. And so he decided to go with that army. And even though he was in old age, he went ahead anyway. And long story short, he ended up passing away during the siege. And he had asked his fellow soldiers to bury him as close as possible to the walls of Constantinople, or as deep into Constantinople as possible. This was before he died. He had fallen sick, and so he said that if he dies, that they would want to take his body as far in as possible, which is what they did. this walk all the way up to Pierre Loti, you'll see almost the entire way up is just cemeteries on your left and right hand sides, and just kind of go down the mountains. You'll see it just keeps going all the way down. A lot of these are relatively newer, or like in recent years, and some of these are really old from in the beginning, especially near the bottom of the hill. You'll see a lot of them that are maybe over a century old.